We were friends when we said hello to each other. I believe that is the best name you can give someone. Is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me in my whole life. It took Red Skelton decades to make people laugh, and he became one of the most popular comedians on TV. But in October 2024, never-before-seen video of his last act showed up on Tubi. We've been together for 17 years. There have been terrible things happen in my life, and I can't say for sure that this is one of them. Skelton gave up comedy and spoke directly to the camera after being locked up for over 40 years because he was thought to be too emotional. All of the living rooms where I used to live. I've always lived in lovely places. Of telling lies at work, family tragedies, and personal mistakes. It wasn't a show. It was a goodbye. It's not being praised. There are no funny sounds. And I tell myself, I was important an hour ago. Tomorrow I have to start over. The clown's son was born into disaster. Red Skelton's last TV show was taped in 1984. Please welcome Mr. Red Skelton, a really funny clown. They never showed it on TV. The tape was kept in a vault for 40 years. People knew why when it finally came out. He didn't make any jokes, he just told the truth about things he had kept hidden his whole career. Not telling anyone about his past, family, and how he built everything on something he never told them. It was painful to see the honest truth. Everything that was said led back to the same place. He learned to get by in any way possible because he was poor. The sadness that taught him how to act. The father he never had but spent his whole life becoming. It all began in Indiana. Richard Bernard Skelton was born without a mother on July 18, 1913, in a Vanson boarding house that smelled like failure and boiled cabbage. Joseph, his dad, had been dead for 2 months. At age 37, Joseph's heart stopped beating while he was painting his face white for the Hagenbeck Wallace Circus. He was making kids laugh while his own family went hungry. Ida, 3 boys, a lot of debt, and a 4th child still in the womb were all behind him. The owner put a notice to vacate on their door while Ida nursed Red. The family moved to a shack next to the tracks, and every hour, trains shook the walls. The bigger boys got jobs. Red learned to walk on floors that shook with poor people. Red learned everything from hunger. He learned at age 5 that making the baker laugh could get him an extra roll. A perfectly timed fall could turn someone from angry to amused. Some kids hit the boy whose father had died with rocks. Red laughed at jokes. In the evening, Red sold newspapers on Washington Street at 3 cents each. He danced for customers, sang in between sales, and told jokes he had learned on the train. Station salespeople. He made 60 cents some days. Most days, less. He saw moms sell their wedding rings to get milk. I saw kids walk barefoot to school in the snow in January. Began moving ice blocks before dawn. 50 pounds on his back for a nickel each time. By 10 o'clock, Red had done 6 jobs. At dawn, they brought ice, in the afternoon, newspapers, and washed dishes at the National Hotel. At night, they swept the pool hall, ran cigars to the courts, and did laundry for widows who paid them in soup. His mother got every penny. She never told him, but every night he saw her count coins to pay the rent. In the summer of 1923, the medicine show came to Vanson. From a painted wagon, Dr. Ree Lewis sold miracle potions that he said could fix anything. He needed $10 a week to help with props. That night, Red packed a plastic box. His mom didn't say anything. She knew that being poor had already taken away her son's childhood. He could at least eat while watching the health show. Red learned a lot by driving on dusty roads in Indiana for 4 years. In Terute, a drunk person showed him how to juggle. He learned how to do ventriloquism from a failed vaudevillian in Evansville. Acrobatics were taught to him by circus rejects when he wasn't in jail. Red fell off the stage in Bloomington one night and broke 12 bottles of Drive Lewis's magic elixir. Glass went off. Everywhere. The crowd yelled. Doc Lewis kept Red on stage and made him clean up while making every move look bigger than it really was. Red knew at that point that making mistakes could be art if you really did it. He sent $10 home every week in envelopes with drawings of circus tents on them. How he told his mom that he was looking for the ghost of his father. Following the ghost of his dead father through circus tents. He is 15 years old and has $135 in his pocket. In 1929, Red quit school. The principal didn't say anything. For the sake of life, half of the town had already given up on school. While driving on Highway 41 to Chicago, Red stuck out his thumb. A burlesque comedian had told him he would have worked there, but it never came through. The Great Chicago became a graveyard of hopes and dreams during the Great Depression. Red slept in alleys off of State Street, washed dishes at Greek restaurants, and did tricks on street corners to get coins that didn't come very often. Outside of the Oriental Theater, he did juggling until the police scared him away. He sang in speakeasies until his voice broke. It took 6 months of being turned down and going hungry before rescue came in a familiar form. The Hogenbeck Wallace Circus asked for a drummer for one of their sideshows. It was the same circus where his dad had his last show. Red agreed without any doubts. The bunks in the train car smelled like his youth. It was impossible to avoid sawdust. At dawn, the elephants made noise. This wasn't only about jobs. The field was archaeology. Going through many layers of art and custom to find the father who only showed up in other performers' stories. The Merry Mutes hired him when he was 16 years old. They were a silent comedy act that went on tour with the circus and did shows between animal acts. $5 a week to play the drums while the other artists pretended to tell long stories. Red couldn't say anything on stage. His body screamed, but he didn't open his mouth. Years of unspoken sadness were in every move. People gasped and then laughed as his face changed into strange emotions. He learned to speak the language of stumbles and write the poems of Pratt Falls. Clarence Stout, who knew Red's father, took him aside one night in Indianapolis and told him the way his father could make tragedy funny with his body was the same way he could do it. After that, Red worked harder at his game. Looked at every move Charlie Chaplin made in movies. Learned Buster Keaton's deadpan stares by heart. His face showed a lot of feelings that he had never been allowed to show. "Coco, why don't you join us for Christmas?" "No, no. I have to go back to the gym to gum." By 1931, Red had formed a talking act with Bud Jones. They made $75 a week by making prints. Crowds forgot about the Great Depression for 15 minutes thanks to Clark Gable and Red. His act with Laurel and Hardy paid the rent. Then Bud ran off with their money and a. Betty is a chorus girl. Place, Sacramento, California. Jose, don't leave yet. Red was broke again, but this time his skills were worth more than money. He went to Kansas City because of the deception, and an usher named Edna Stillwell would change his life. The woman who made a fortune. At the Pantages Theater in Kansas City in March 1932, Edna Stillwell was taking tickets when Red walked in. He was high on fake gin and felt sorry for himself after losing everything to Bud Jones. He was thrown out. The next night, he came back sober and begged to be on stage. She made up a joke about a man who was too stupid to stay in jail right then and there. People really liked it. After 3 months, on June 1st, they got married. People said that Edna wrote comedy like they breathed, it was natural and important. She grew up above her dad's funeral home, using her sense of humor to protect herself from the death that happened downstairs. Her jokes were as sharp as knives and told the truth while making people laugh. She saw how Red's raw ability was getting lost in the chaos and chose to save him not out of sympathy but out of necessity. She knew a great present when she saw one. Their first flat was a one-room loft above a butcher shop. When it rained, the walls let water in. A train went by every 20 minutes, shaking the building. Red worked on his moves in the bathroom mirror while Edna wrote at a card table. During their second week of marriage, she made Guzzler's Gin. A sketch about a drunk man who was desperately trying to hide bottles from his wife. Each place he hid was sillier than the last. That Friday, Red did it at the Tower Theater. This is the tonic program for the Guzzler. Let me try the gin from Guzzler. It has 2 sizes. They were booked for a month by the boss. The money began to flow. It started at $50 a week and went up to $100, then $200. By 1937, 2,000 people were going to the Chicago Civic Opera House every week. Edna arranged every deal, wrote every routine, and kept track of every dollar. She took Red from being a skilled mess to a full-time performer. She also ran everything else behind closed doors. What he ate, who he talked to, and how long he slept. Red wasn't upset. After years of chaos, being in charge felt like safety to her. America changes because of Clem Kadiddlehopper. The change that radio made. He or she showed up fully formed during a break in practice at NBC Studios in 1937. Red was having a Bologna lunch when he was asked to fill in on the Avalon Time Hour. He picked up the mic and spoke as slowly as he could before cutting off. It was birth of Clem Kadiddlehopper. This country bumpkin was so pure that he made stupidity look smart. In just 3 weeks, fan mail tripled. It was 1937, and America needed Clem. People were down because of the slump. Word of war spread from Europe. Roosevelt's words didn't seem to mean much. But then I heard this voice on the radio every Tuesday night telling stories about getting lost in his own barn. He tried to milk a bull while thinking a dummy was his cousin. Clem never meant to hurt anyone and never got why people were mean. People who heard him felt confused about how mean the world was, reminded them of times when they were also innocent. In 1941, Red got his own 15-minute show on NBC every Tuesday night. 20 million people in the U.S. watched. Red packed every episode with characters, and more people watched his campfire chats than any other show. Willie Lump Lump was drunk. Junior was a mean little kid. This is Bolivar Shagnasty, the wimp. Each sound is different. Each character holds a piece of Red's broken youth. The mean kid was Red, who was up against bullies. It was his drunk. Get away from the pain. He was afraid of becoming a father, which made him a coward. Radio kept Red from being poor, but it almost killed him. He wrote all the scripts, did all the voices, and ran all the rehearsals. People used to work 18-hour days. Meals were swapped out for coffee and smokes. Edna pushed him harder because she could feel their window closing as TV came on. Red had gained 140 pounds by 1943. His hands were shaking all the time. Everything changed when it fell apart. It felt like the mic weighed 1,000 pounds. Red stood at the NBC radio station in Hollywood on March 12, 1943. He was 15 minutes into his live show when the script began to move on the page. 20 million people in the U.S. watched him struggle with a joke about Willie Lump Lump buying a horse. His voice broke. His shirt was wet from sweat. Then, as clear as the studio lights above him, he heard his dad's voice. "Son, keep going." It had been 30 years since Joseph Skelton died. Red's knees gave out first. As he fell, the microphone caught his chin and sent the sound to living rooms all over the United States. His lungs stopped working right. The people in the room thought it was part of the act until they saw blood coming from the cut he got from the microphone. 2 stagehands pulled him to the wings while the musicians played quickly to fill the empty space. The host told the world that Mr. Skelton was feeling bad. The part where Red kept talking about his dad wasn't brought up by anyone. It was called tiredness by the doctors at Cedars Hospital. Red was getting by every day on 4 hours of sleep, 30 cigarettes, and 12 cups of coffee. He wrote lines until dawn, practiced until his voice hurt, did live shows, recorded take after take, and signed autographs until his hand hurt. His body had just given up. There was poor nutrition, dehydration, and nervous system breakdown shown on the charts. They didn't show a man who had been running away from poverty for so long that he had forgotten how to stop. Red had too much time to think while he was in the hospital for 6 weeks. About how his father worked himself to death and died at age 37. About the circus artists he knew who fell. They were dead when they were 40. About why you were making so many people laugh if you died before you turned 50. Something had changed when he went back to the radio in May. His voice no longer had any light in it. The mean kid figure, which started out as a minor sketch, turned into his main way of expressing himself. The child would scream and then destroy everything in reach when they got mad. Parents sent letters of anger. The FCC sent out warnings about encouraging youth crime. Child psychologists said that the color red was bad for American kids, but the show's numbers kept going up. The mean widow kid wasn't teaching kids how to be violent. They learned it was okay to be angry. That even adults were angry in ways they couldn't describe. Say it. Red found that darkness made more money than light. Red had never been to those places before where the new information came from. Remembering wanting to fight the kids who made fun of his lack of money. Thoughts of destroying the pawn shop where moms bought and sold wedding rings for food. Mad at a world that let kids go hungry while other people ate until they were sick. He put a funny spin on it all. Put silly sounds on it to make it safe. But there was real anger there. What happened to the gambler? In 1944, $10,000 came every Friday. A leather briefcase full of cash was brought to Red's changing room at NBC. Star money. Pay for a mansion. That money meant his mom would never have to worry about him again. Red bought a 16-room house in Bear, a Cadillac for every day of the week, and clothes from the same tailor who dressed Cary Grant. But the money didn't feel real. It was like play money that would go away if he stopped moving. The Flamingo Casino in Las Vegas always knew when Red's show ended. Champagne on ice was sent along with girls who laughed at every joke. After 18 days, Red told himself he deserved to take it easy. Was telling himself that gaming was just a show. Reading faces instead of groups of people. He told himself that he could lose. All lies that players tell themselves when the cards get cold at 3 a.m. November 18, 1944, Red had been at the baccarat table for 14 hours. Started with 5,000, built it up to 30,000, and then watched it slowly go away. He kept putting his name on markers, each one a promise that he would keep. The pit boss brought coffee that had bourbon added to it. Everyone else went to bed. Red stayed. He owed $50,000 by dawn. He spent all the money he had saved on a casino that would be torn down in 10 years. It was his mother's safety net. It took 8 hours to get back to Los Angeles. Red pulled over 3 times to throw up. He wasn't drunk, he was sick from understanding that he was everything his mother had warned him about his dad's circus friends. Men who got rich by making people laugh and then lost it all by chasing easy money. He was on the side of Route 66 in his Cadillac and watched the sun rise over the desert. Finally getting it, cheers were just noise and cash was just paper if you didn't know when to leave. MGM gave him money to use for future movies. Edna worked out payment plans with the company. To pay off the loan, Red worked on 7 movies over the course of 2 years. He never talked about that night in public, but his friends saw that he stopped having fun, resting, and doing anything but work. After that, each payment felt like a short-term fix. Every laugh from the crowd felt like it wasn't theirs. The biggest scene stealer in Hollywood. In 1940, Louis B. Mayer saw Red act at the Chicago Theater and signed him before the show ended. I needed comics for MGM. People wanted to get away from the war in Europe. Red's radio success meant that he would do well at the box office. His first part in Flight Command was as a clumsy new recruit, which aired for 4 minutes. He wasn't brought up by critics, but Mayer saw something in the clips. Red's body told jokes, but his mouth never spoke. It all changed on the day Dr. Kildare got married. Red got drunk and showed up to film in April 1941. Not stumbling drunk, but perfectly tuned drunk, the kind that made him move 2 seconds after he meant to. His boss, Harold Bouet, gave him 2 days to film a scene at a wedding gathering. Red made up 12 minutes of physical comedy on the spot. That didn't need words, trying to hide the fact that he was drunk while making a toast, catching cake that fell, and dancing with the wrong bride. It is said that the movie star, Lou Eyes, watched from behind the camera and said, "Well, this picture's not mine anymore." People who saw test screenings liked Red scenes more than anything else MGM had made that year. The mayor told them to put him in all of the comedies on the lot. Ship Ahoy, Panama. Maisie gets her man. Red took all of them. Not out of pride, but out of desire. He would show up knowing every actor's lines, every camera angle, and how to do every stumble so it looked like it happened by chance. Red made everyone look better, set up their jokes, and took the falls that made them look graceful while other players protected their moments. By 1943, Whistling in Brooklyn had made Red a star. The writing was bad. A funny story about a radio detective who solves real killings. On the other hand, Red used his will alone to turn it